Let's get into the news, and I want to give an update, kind of like an update on Michael Jackson's estate. We reported about like how his Michael Jackson's mom was suing the estate for not properly paying duties, and the kids didn't like that, and a lot of stuff was going on behind the scenes, just arguing about money and how the $400 million that Sony paid to buy Michael Jackson's publishing and stuff like that was not a good amount, and his mom was not accepting that, and how, you remember Michael Jackson had issues with Sony Records. They never liked each other, not never, but, later on in the years, Michael Jackson said, hey, these guys are devils and they're leeching off of me, and I don't want nothing to do with them. So, Michael Jackson passes away in 2009, sorry, not 2019, but 2009, and then, now Sony's trying to buy his music again because they know his music is forever going to be timeless. This is why I have an issue with Apple Music's top 100 albums list and not having Michael Jackson's Thriller on there. Not number one, at least. It's on there. It's number two. But number one, it should have been because his music just breaks barriers, constantly relevant. So, yeah. Let's go over the article. It's interesting, right? Michael Jackson's estate has cut off funding to the late king of pop's 3 children, and the payments cannot resume until the tax issues the estate is facing are resolved. This is huge tax issues, by the way. It's not just a low amount of money. It's a lot of money. People is reporting that the IRS filed a claim with the estate on Tuesday, May 28th, demanding that no further money can be added to the trust funds of the beneficiaries' estates until their matters with the federal agency are resolved. In addition to his 3 children, Jackson's mother, Catherine, is also a beneficiary of his estate. In annual reports provided to the probate court, which are publicly available, anyone can see that the estate provides Michael's mother and children with very substantial amounts of money to support them. Read a statement from the estate to the outlet. It concluded the estate has a very cooperative relationship with Michael's children, and whenever they need anything, the estate works with them to ensure they are very well taken care of, just as Michael would have wanted. This is the crazy thing. The IRS is contending that the estate of Michael Jackson owes more than $700 million in back taxes. It's almost we're $300 million away from $1 billion in back taxes. Back in March, Catherine Jackson challenged John Brecka and John McClain, co-executives of late King of Pop's estate, from moving forward with an unnamed transaction. The dispute, according to legal accounts, is costing her a substantial amount in legal fees, which Jackson's son Blanket argued shouldn't be financially responsible of MJ's estate. So that was a long time ago report on that. But apparently, the IRS has concluded, hey, you guys owe us $700 million. Now, we knew at the time before Michael Jackson passed away that Michael Jackson was in incredible debt. By that is like, listen, by the way, rich people's debt is different than regular people's debt, right? Like us, we have debt that is more simple. Rich people at that level of Michael Jackson, where they're billionaires, they got debt at different depths and different levels where they borrow and borrow and borrow from different things and borrow to pay this borrower, to pay this borrower, to pay this borrower. I mean, if we look at Diddy's documents that came out, he doesn't even own the houses he has because he used them as like liens on other businesses and stuff like that. That's usually how rich people do it. They just borrow money to borrow other money, to pay for other things, to borrow money to pay for like that's just how. If you're smart when it comes to America and how to finesse the system, you want to use other people's money as much as possible and use it in a smart way, obviously. For example, I always use the car loan examples. Car loan, you only want to get a car loan if the interest rate beats the market, meaning if the interest rate, let's just say the market is 4%, right? Interest rates are what the market is. If you get below that and that 4%, if you invest into savings, you get 4% off your savings account, right? If you're making 4% off that, you're making more money than what the interest rate is charging you. So you would normally get something that's under 4% on an interest rate on a car loan. That beats the market because you're saving money. That makes sense to get a car loan. When you're not beating the market, then you're losing money, drastic amounts. So it's not as simple as that. There's a lot more details into it that I can get into and just go crazy on it, but that's just the simple gist of it, that you always want to beat the market when you're getting any type of loan or anything like that. Right now, interest rates are astronomically high, so of course, it's the worst time to get a car loan or any type of loan. But, at the time, Michael Jackson was struggling with just having a lot of money borrowed and, hey, I owe this, I owe that, I owe that. So what he did was, hey, how can I recoup or how can I make a bunch of money to pay off all my debts, right? Let me do a tour. Then he does, hey, the final, what is it called? Last tour. I forgot what it's called. I got to get this name right. This is it. This is it, right? He announced it. It initially had, I don't know how many shows. It had, it started out with a few shows. Like, it wasn't too much, right? It started out with like 20 shows, and then all of a sudden a bunch of dates started getting added, and people were like, yo, can Michael Jackson actually do these shows? Because it's like he's getting a lot older. It's going to be a lot harder to do them, blah, 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 right? Well, they added a bunch of shows and knew that they're going to make astronomical amounts of money because Michael Jackson touring. That's one way that artists can forever make money if they got music that actually warrants them to be able to tour for the rest of their life. Like if they made classics, they can tour for the rest of their life and make money. Prime example, 50 Cent. Then you got other artists that haven't made classics that tour and can't sell out shows for anything. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of newer artists have struggled to sell out shows or just do any types of tours because they're not selling. Jennifer Lopez just recently canceled her tour, and they had like Live Nation came up with the excuse of like, hey, she's focusing on her family and stuff like that, when in reality she was selling like 20% to 30% of her shows. Like, that's horrible. Like, you got to at least sell like 67% to make it somewhat successful. But that's what artists do. They usually get into these tourist things, pay off their debts, whatever they owe. Now, Live Nation, this is why it's best to not sign with Live Nation if you're an artist, because Live Nation will do a thing where they'll loan you money, and you're thinking, oh, I just did a deal with Live Nation. They gave me $10 million. Wow, I just got $10 million, right? You're excited. But on the back end, Live Nation's like, you got to pay us $20 million back, and on top of that, we're making money off of everything that you're doing, from the entries of people to the drinks that are being sold to everything. And that's how you get screwed into a contract where you're in debt consistently, paying off the loan, and then you constantly have to tour. A lot of artists get stuck in that trap, and that's why they're touring for a lot of their lives. Regardless, Michael Jackson had to pay off all these debts, did these tours, and said, hey, once I'm done with these tours, I paid off my debts, I'm good to go. Now, could have Michael Jackson been like, no, I don't want to tour. Instead, what I'll do is just sell my Beatles catalog, which is worth, I don't know how much, an astronomical amount of money. He could have just sold a bunch of his assets and been like, hey, I'll pay off my debts by doing that, from the IRS to whatever debts he owed. But he wanted to keep those while keeping those, do shows, use that money, and just pay people off. Unfortunately, that never ended up happening because he passed away before the actual tour could start. But $700 million is, you would think after all these years, because I know when he died, he had how much debt did Michael Jackson have when he died? Let me actually look this up for you guys. He was in debt over $400 million by the time of his death. So $400 million right now. I don't know if that's from this and they haven't paid this back yet, or if it's from new debt accumulated after his death, because after his death, his sales skyrocketed. He ended up like making billions and billions after his death. More people were purchasing things from Michael Jackson, and record labels love that. That's why there is a death clause, and I'm not going to get into all that. It's a whole conspiracy theory, but it's actual facts. I don't even think it's conspiracy theory. I want to do a documentary on those type of things like that, but that's down the line. But regardless, $400 million, let's just say it was from this interest rate after all these years, added up to $700 million. Still hasn't paid that off. That is an astronomical amount of money. I don't know how much Michael Jackson's estate is worth. Let me see. In 2021, the tax court issued a ruling in favor of the estate, ruling that the estate's total combined value of the estate was $111.5 million. That's nothing compared to $700 million. And the value of Jackson's name and likeness was $4 million, not the $61 million estimated by the IRS's outside expert witness. Now, they could be lying because tax courts, you're going to lie. Like 50 lied about the bankruptcy thing. He was talking about, I'm not making much money, this and that. You can finesse and make it seem like it's not less. So I don't think it's $111 million. That's really low considering for Michael Jackson's like level. But $700 million is a lot of money to owe. So we'll keep our eyes posted. The kids are not going to get paid at all anymore. Nobody's going to get paid until the IRS gets paid. That's how they work. They're going to jump in and take whatever they want to take. So yeah, we'll keep our eyes posted, and hopefully this gets resolved because, Michael Jackson worked his ass off, not just for the government to be taking everything. So yeah, we'll see.